Excited to welcome Jesse Montano back to the program. He covers the Colorado Avalanche for Guerilla Sports. And Jesse, let's start with the trade that was made earlier this week. The Avs have completely overhauled their goaltending in the matter of a couple of weeks. And I'll just start with your opinion on this. Do you like this set of moves? Is it enough for the Avs? And does this give them Stanley Cup caliber goaltending? Or was this maybe a little bit of a panic move? Where do you come out on it?
When you look at the full body of work, both moves that are made, I actually really like it. Look, they had to make a move, right? Everyone was watching, everyone was seeing what was going on in net, league worst save percentage. The advanced metrics all said that the team was playing relatively well, not maybe to the level that we've come to expect over the last couple of years, but they couldn't get a stop. So Chris MacFarland had to go out and do something. I think the Scott Wedgwood deal is a really nice one in terms of locker room fit. I know he's a backup goalie, but he really seems like he's breathed some life into this team and just the right mentality and being vocal in the room. And then the Blackwood deal. Look, I think that Mackenzie Blackwood's still a little bit unproven. His time in New Jersey, when that team started to ramp up, he crumbled a little bit, maybe under that pressure. So there's a question mark around, can he handle coming to a Stanley Cup contender and being the guy that the Avs are looking to carry them to that place. But I like the move. I think these are two guys that can give you average to slightly above average on most nights. And when this team is going, as we just saw in this last 5-game trip, that's all they need. This is a talented team. When they're healthy, it's a deep group. You got the elite skill on the high end. They just need average to above average on most nights. And I think this pair of moves can give it to them. And really, in the grand scheme of things, maybe a little bit, maybe one or two assets more than you would have liked on the Blackwood deal, but nothing that you can't live without. I think this was a couple nice bits of business by Chris MacFarland. And hey, look, it takes a pretty big set to completely turn over your goalie room before Christmas. So he said that the team was owed this and that they needed to go out and make a move for him.
Yeah, first team in NHL history to completely change out its tandem from opening night before Christmas. But Jesse, you hit on one thing that I want to drill down on, which is the goalies being a breath of fresh air. You heard Nathan MacKinnon sort of vaguely reference this in his post-game interview on Tuesday night in Pittsburgh. You heard Chris MacFarland kind of hint at this as well. But just getting Alexander Georgiev and his negative attitude out of the room, how much do you think that is just going to also be a breath of fresh air for this team?
Well, and Chris MacFarland made sure, like to your point, Frank, he made sure to call out that bringing in Mackenzie Blackwood and he was lumping in Scott Wedgwood, said that these are cultural fits. These are guys that are going to fit in the locker room, and it's important to us. I don't think any of the guys on the Avs, didn't like Alexander Georgiev. They battled with him every night. I'm sure they think he's a nice guy. I had nice interactions with him in the locker room, but look, there were multiple instances that we saw on the ice, whether it be last season or even this year, where he's barking at guys. Maybe you could say a little quick to point the finger when pucks were going in the back of the net. And I just think that when, Nathan MacKinnon yells at a lot of guys too, he's also the reigning MVP, 140 point getter. It makes a difference. And I think, look, Nathan MacKinnon also made comments, 2 weeks ago in Tampa Bay when they had that nightmare game in Tampa Bay, lost 8-2. I talked to him after the game and he said the pucks were going in the net and there was nothing we could do to stop it. I read between the lines a little bit on that, and that was, I think, the most vocal frustration that we heard from any player or coach with the goaltending, saying, yeah, we just didn't matter what we did. If we were playing in the offensive zone, if we were playing good defense, the pucks were going in the net. There was nothing we could do. And I do just think you're right. It was just a negative energy around the entire goaltending situation. I think guys were frustrated. I think the goaltenders were then in turn frustrated back because guys were frustrated with them. And I think you're right, Frank. I think it was just a negative energy, negative aura, and you've turned the page on it. We don't have to talk about it anymore. Now you've got two guys that the only thing they got to do is go out and stop the puck. And I think it is going to make a big difference. Alexander Georgiev, like I said, I only had positive interactions with him, but I had been told that he could be a little bit prickly sometimes in that room. And I think just with the guys you brought in, that's not going to be the case. Scott Wedgwood, we made comments on his first game, that game in Buffalo, where Georgiev gives up 4 goals in the first. Wedgwood comes in. The Avs end up having their second biggest comeback in franchise history to win that game in regulation. And the first thing Scott Wedgwood does in the locker room when the team makes him the player of the game, he gets up and gives credit to Georgiev, saying it took both goaltenders to win this game here tonight. And I just think that's the kind of attitude that they needed. whether he meant it or not, just, hey, we're all in this together. We're all going to battle every night. And I think you can see on the ice that the Avs are just playing with new energy. And they seem to have this attitude of like, all right, let's go. The management went out and did something for us. We're going to go out and perform. But I do think, not that Georgiev or Annunen weren't friends with any of the guys, but I do think that had just soured and they needed to move on.
Yeah, just ask Tony DeAngelo, who ate a blocker in the face from Georgiev in New York.
Right.
All of a sudden, the idea of that whole thing changes. But I wanted to actually bring it back because we did run your clip on our show from that night in Tampa when Nathan MacKinnon said that. Just if that's what he was saying publicly, what do you think was being said behind the scenes and making the same point to Chris MacFarland? And really, how much does this entire team and their energy run off the back of what Nathan MacKinnon does and says?
No, you're totally right. Nathan MacKinnon is the emotional engine of this Avalanche team. And when he's frustrated with a situation, guys follow suit behind that. You know what I mean? And the advanced numbers say that this Avalanche team has not played poorly to start. Again, maybe not to the level that we've come to expect over the last couple of years, but they've played well. They've battled hard. They've competed. And there's just been so many nights where it's like, they lost that game because they couldn't get a save. And I think you can put up with that for a few nights. They came out of the gate slow. Well, we'll turn the page. It wasn't ending. You'd get one or two good starts out of Georgiev, and then it'd be right back to what you were dealing with the week before. And I think exactly what you're saying. That was what he was willing to say to me, let alone when they're out at dinner or, behind closed doors or even in the locker room in between periods. I just think that relationship got to a point where you couldn't go on with it. You could not wait to see if they were going to turn it around and, get going on the right track. I just think that it had gone bad in the locker room to the level that Chris MacFarland said, we need to make a change. He used the phrase shook us to our core in his availability the other day after acquiring Mackenzie Blackwood, saying that that was what the start of the season from the goaltenders did to them. So it went beyond just what we were seeing on the ice for sure.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about another thing Chris MacFarland said, and he kind of added, they want to keep doing things to improve this team. And when I look at the fact they don't have a first rounder this year, they don't have a third rounder this year, no second and third rounder next year, my kind of two-part question to you is, what do you think Chris MacFarland still wants to do, and how can he accomplish it with that little assets?
And little cap space.
Yeah. So the cap space is the big one. Now, I've been told that they've got a date somewhere around Four Nations where internally they're going to make a decision on Gabe Landeskog for this season, at least for the regular season. And so I really take that to mean we are going to know going into Four Nations if we've got his cap space for flexibility or if we need to be counting on him coming back before the start of the playoffs. So I think they're waiting a little bit on that. I also think Chris MacFarland wants to wait to see how healthy they get. Jared Bednar just went on the radio this morning and said reinforcements really aren't that close to entering the lineup or re-entering the lineup. So I think they want to wait a little bit, see who gets back healthy, see how long they can stay healthy, looking at Jonathan Drouin, and then reassess. We've had a lot of conversations this season around the Avs prospect pipeline is ranked pretty low, exactly like what you're saying, Tyler. Like there's not a lot there. But they also maybe deserve a little bit of credit. Ivan, Nikita Prishepov, they were able to use Nikolai Kovalenko as a nice asset that I don't know you would have been able to do before the start of the season. They've had to there's been 7 NHL debuts for the Avs this season. So they've been able to pull some decent talent out of that pipeline. But you're right. They're going to have to get creative with it if they want to continue making moves. I don't think anything is imminently coming. I think when Chris MacFarland said that, my guess is that he is talking a little bit closer to the deadline, maybe right after Four Nations, making some moves. He got out ahead of it on the goaltender side of it, but I like their depth up front. I think they'd maybe like a little bit more depth on D. They've kind of had a rotating cast of guys there filling in on that 6th spot that they don't seem fully satisfied with any of them. So I really do think he is talking a solid bottom 6, maybe a center if you can find it, maybe a depth D. So nothing crazy, but I do still think Chris MacFarland's antennas are up on how he can improve this team before the deadline.
Jesse Montano from Guerilla Sports. You do great work there. You give us great analysis here. Thanks for popping on.
Anytime, boys. Always got time for you. Thanks so much.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.